All right, let's dive into something you experience every single day, but maybe don't really think about. We're talking about the hidden world of architectural acoustics. Yeah, it's this invisible science that's constantly shaping what you hear, whether you're in a huge echoing train station or a library that's pin-drop quiet.
I mean, think about it. Why is that? It all boils down to design. That incredible magical feeling you get in a great concert hall, that's no accident. It is meticulously engineered. But that chaotic, muddy mess of sound in a school gym, well, that's what happens when the sound isn't designed at all. And today, we're going to pull back the curtain and see exactly how architects become masters of what you hear.
Okay, so where do you even start with all this? Well, it begins with a really fundamental idea. Understanding the difference between two words we kind of throw around all the time: sound and noise. See, for a designer, it's pretty clear-cut. Sound is the good stuff. It's the information, right? The music, the conversation, the things you actually want to hear. It's organized. But noise is the enemy. It's all the chaotic, unwanted junk that just gets in the way. And really, the entire game of architectural acoustics is just this: boost the sound and kill the noise.
And to control sound, you've got to understand how it actually moves through a space. The best way to picture it is like dropping a pebble in a still pond. A sound source sends out these waves, rippling out in every direction, and those waves are going to smack into every single surface in that room.
So, what happens when those waves hit the walls and the ceiling and the floor? They don't just vanish, right? Nope, they bounce. And this bouncing, this lingering echo, is at the heart of pretty much every single acoustic problem. There's a name for it, and it's called reverberation.
And that brings us to maybe the single most important concept in all of room acoustics: reverberation time. It's basically just a fancy way of measuring how long a room's echo lasts. You know, if you clap your hands, how long does that sound hang in the air before it's gone? That's it. That's the reverberation time.
So you can think of rooms on a spectrum. On one end, you've got what's called a live room. Think of your bathroom, all tiles and hard surfaces. Sound bounces around in there forever, right? And on the complete opposite end, you have a dead room. Picture a recording studio, just covered in that thick acoustic foam. You clap in there, and the sound just dies, instantly.
Now, to turn this from a feeling into a science, you need a standard, and we have one. Officially, reverberation time is the exact time it takes for a sound to get 60 decibels quieter. To give you an idea of what that means, that's about the drop-off from a loud conversation all the way down to a faint whisper. Having this number gives designers a solid, consistent target to work with.
Okay, so the big question is, how do designers actually control this stuff? How do they tame that reverberation? Well, they have a whole toolkit, and the first, most powerful tool they reach for is absorption.
You see, every single material out there, everything from solid concrete to a plush carpet, has something called an absorption coefficient. It's just a simple score, from 0 to 1. A material with a 0, it's like a perfect mirror for sound. It reflects everything. And a 1, that's a perfect absorber. The classic example is an open window. The sound just goes right through and never comes back.
And this little number is where architects can start doing some real math. They take that absorption score for a material, multiply it by how much of that material they're going to use, the surface area, and boom, they get the room's total effective absorbing area. What's so cool about this is it means they can predict and totally fine-tune how a room will sound before anyone even starts building.
But hold on, it's not always about just soaking up sound and making things quiet. Sometimes you actually want the sound to bounce. You just need to tell it where to go. And that brings us to the second huge tool in the architect's toolkit, reflection.
And believe me, these reflectors have gotten seriously sophisticated over time. The first generation? Super simple. Just big flat panels that would bounce sound from, say, the stage to the people in the back. Then, the second generation got smarter, using really precise angles to control exactly when that reflection would arrive. And now, today's third-gen reflectors use these incredible complex curves to spread the sound out perfectly, all over the room.
And here's a little peek at the genius behind that second-generation stuff. Designers use this clever formula to make sure that the path the reflected sound takes, that's A plus B, isn't a whole lot longer than the path the direct sound takes, which is C. The goal is to get that reflection to your ear just a tiny fraction of a second after the direct sound. And when they get that timing just right, your brain doesn't hear an echo. Instead, it just thinks the original sound is richer and clearer and louder.
It's a total brain hack. So, okay, we have our two main tools, right? Absorption for soaking up sound and reflection for steering it. Now let's see how architects put these together to solve a really common, really tricky problem in auditorium design.
So here's a fundamental problem you have to deal with, and it's just basic physics. Low-frequency sounds, we're talking deep bass notes, the rumble of a cello, they have really long wavelengths. And because of that, they just naturally hang around in a room for way longer than high-frequency sounds do.
But here's the brilliant part. Instead of trying to fight physics and make everything perfectly flat, the best acoustic designers actually embrace this. They'll intentionally design the room so that the reverberation time for those bass notes is about 30% longer. What does this do? It lets those low notes linger just a little bit, giving the music this incredible warmth and richness. It's how they solve something called the bass loss problem.
And really, that brings us to the ultimate goal of all of this. Because at the end of the day, this isn't just about formulas and physics. It's about shaping a human experience. It's about using these incredible design principles to intentionally craft what we hear, and by doing that, to literally shape our perception and our sense of being in a space.
So the next time you walk into any room, a classroom, a cafe, a church, just for a second, stop and listen. Really listen. Is the room live or is it dead? Can you hear the person across the table clearly, or is it all a muddled mess? You now have the secret decoder ring to understand why it sounds the way it does. The architecture around you is always talking, and now you know its language.